Hari Om, greetings and salutations, dear devotees. My name is Isha Dilraj, and it is my humble pleasure to welcome you to the first day of Gita Week Discourses by the ever inspirational, dynamic, wise, and motivational Sri Angajan ji. We also welcome officials and devotees of the Amshlanga Hindu Society, the Gujarati Hindu Sanskruti Kendra, the Sri Gopalal Temple, the Vishwaroop Temple, and the Dharamshala. Today marks the start of 8 days of discourses for Gita Week, culminating with a special Sri Krishna Janmashtami discourse on 30th August. The Bhagavad Gita is a message addressed to every human to help us to solve the vexing problem of overcoming the present and progressing towards a bright future. This holy scripture is not just an ancient scripture, nor is it just a book of religious teachings. The Bhagavad Gita is timeless, practical wisdom which transcends the bounds of any religion or race in order to help human beings face and solve the ever-present problems of birth and death, of pain, suffering, fear, bondage, love, and hate. Over the next few days, Angajan ji will be taking us on a wondrous journey through chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga of Devotion. I appeal to you to attend every evening so you can follow the thought flow analysis that Angajan ji will masterfully navigate with us through this important chapter. So, without further ado, let us welcome Sri Angajan ji. Thank you.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Saravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome, everybody. We will chant the first 10 verses of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna uvacha evam satatayuktaye bhaktasvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharamavyatam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Maya Veshamano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Saddhaya Parayopetaha Te Me Yuktatamamataha Sharamanirvesham Avyaktam Paryupasade Sarvatra Gamachintyam Cha Kutastamachalam Dhruvam Sanniyamyendriya Gramam Sarvatra Samabuddhayaha Te Prapnuvanti Mameva Sarvabhutahite Rataha क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते ये तु धर्माणि कर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्परः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते तेषाम् अहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्युसंसारसागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितचेतसाम् मय्येव मन आदत्स्व मयि बुद्धिं निवेशय निवशिष्यसि मय्येव अध ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः अध चित्रं समाधातुं न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततः मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय अभ्यासेऽप्यसमर्थोऽसि मत्कर्म परमो भव मदर्थमपि कर्माणि कुर्वन् सिद्धिमवाप्स्यसि. On this auspicious week of Gita week culminating into Krishna Janmashtami, we will be studying the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, a very significant chapter in the Bhagavad Gita that really directly translates into our day-to-day life and living. There was a recent survey by the Harvard University research on the study of adult development, particularly about the life of millennials, asking them what are their most important life goals were. In response to that question, about 80% of them said their goal is to get rich. And about another 50% of the same young adults said their goal is to become famous. So the younger generation are primarily driven by two things: wealth and fame. There seems to be a distorted sense of purpose in the life of millennials, the younger generation in general. The educational institutions, universities, constantly mentally pound on them to work hard, to push hard, and achieve more and more about the worldly things. Nothing wrong with that. Worldly ambition is fantastic, so long as that external pursuit of name, fame, money, whatever that they are aspiring for, are supplemented with the real purpose in life. You got to remember, when we talk about purpose, there are two things. One is the purpose in life, and the other is the purpose of life. Purpose in life is very different from the purpose of life. The purpose in life, most people understand as the material pursuit. Yes, one can do that. But if you look at the psychosomatic engineering of a human being, we are engineered to fulfill a purpose in life, not merely exist. I'm talking about purpose in life. All right. Most people merely exist. Some people survive. Few people really live their life. And rarer few live really happily. Rarest one is able to outlive life itself. So when we talk about purpose in life, the material pursuit, we are engineered to accomplish something in life in our own humble ways. Material pursuit. And that ought to be driven by one's own passion. Our mind and the body structure, they are designed such a way that there is one field of activity in which we can excel. That is what I would call the purpose in life. The Bhagavad Gita calls it Swadharma. Swa means one's own. Dharma means duty in a particular field of activity. So the purpose in life to identify the Swadharma and choose a field of activity in line with one's own nature. One will excel. Two things will happen. One is you'll be successful in that field. The other is you'll be happy. When there is success combined with happiness and peace, that is really heaven right here. Purpose in life. The purpose of life is something beyond. That is where the rarest of the rare, who really outlive the very life itself, they rise above life and find the very purpose of human existence to be able to answer that question, who am I? Religions calls it enlightenment, God realization, self-realization. They all mean one and the same thing. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the word duty. The first word of the first verse of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita begins with the word dharma. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavah. Goes on. The last word of the last verse of the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita ends with the word mama. Mama means mine. Dharma means duty. Dharma means nature. So the entire Bhagavad Gita is sandwiched between these two significant words. Mama, dharma, my duty. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. If you rearrange the word, mama dharma or dharma kshetre kurukshetre, it will be like kshetre dharma kuru. Kshetra means field, a field of activity. Kshetre dharma kuru. In each field that you and me and all of us are engaged in, do your duty. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. So our purpose is to primarily to discover that purpose and pursue it. Mark Twain said, there are two important days of your life. One is the day you are born, and the other is the day you discover why. When it comes to the day you are born, we all know it. We'll make a note, we'll remember it. And if somebody else forgets it, we'll create a hell for them, especially if it is your spouse. If they forget the day you're born, your birthday. But how many people can be proud of saying the second one, the day you discover why you are born? The second question, the day you discover why, very few people in the world are able to answer. And they are the geniuses. They are the people who accomplish. I'm not talking just about the material things. When you are able to identify your purpose, passion, you are able to be persistent, joyfully in whatever that you're doing until you accomplish the goal or purpose that you are pursuing. But unfortunately, the second one, Mark Twain said, the day you discover why, very few people are able to answer that. Even some of the top universities in the world, Ivy League universities, Harvard, Oxford, Stanford, MIT, so on and so forth, not only in the West, even in the Eastern countries, don't really answer that question of purpose. Despite the universities pound them with knowledge and information, which a lot of it they don't even use, this aspect of purpose is not being answered or discussed. There was a study that was done in Harvard Business School in 1979. A batch of MBA students were asked this question. The question was, how many of you have conceived a goal and purpose in your life? And you have put pen to paper and wrote down your purpose. The question is, how many of you have conceived a goal and purpose, and you have put pen to paper and wrote down your purpose, a personal mission statement, as it were? 84% of the MBA students in that particular batch did not have a goal, did not have a purpose. They were merely studying. And after they finished their study, they would sit and write their CVs rather than writing a business plan. Many institutions teach the children simply to write CVs, not necessarily to write business plans. They teach them how to take up job rather than how to give jobs. Whereas those people who have discovered their purpose, they don't sit and write CVs every few years for different jobs and different companies. They sit and write business plans so that they think in terms of giving job. That is the power of purpose. So this 84% of them did not have purpose. They were simply studying. 13% of them have conceived the goal mentally, but they didn't write down. Only 3% of the students have conceived the goal and they've written down, and they will read it every single day. And these batch of students were tracked down 10 years later. These research institutions or the research department of these institutions, the conclusion of the research lasts for decades, 10, 20, 30, 40, even 70 years before they make the conclusion. So 10 years later, these batch of students were tracked down to find the success level. And they found those 13% of the students who have conceived the goal, mentally, they didn't write down. They were earning twice as much as rest of the 87%. What about the 3%? The 3% of the students were earning 10 times more than rest of the 97% of them put together. And they also found most of these 97% of them were actually working for those 3%. Those people who live for a purpose, who discover and live for a purpose, don't sit and write CV, they write business plan. They don't seek job, they don't take a job, they think in terms of giving jobs. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of purpose. The Bhagavad Gita, the very first word of the Bhagavad Gita, dharma, symbolizes that. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre, dharma mama. What is my duty? What is my purpose? When you discover that, our talent, skill, knowledge, those are dormant in us, begin to explode. To achieve worldly success, at the same time, spiritual purpose. But unfortunately, the aspect of pursuing a purpose is ignored. The Bhagavad Gita is a manual explaining how to live a life of purpose, not merely exist. In doing so, we are able to experience peace and success. That is a difficult combination for most people. For many people, when the material success comes, peace seems to be disappearing. As their responsibilities increases, their mental pressure also increases along with that. So those rare people who are able to live or outlive their life itself are those who are able to combine dynamic activity and mental peace. In other words, the question is, can you maintain the dynamism of a billionaire CEO, at the same time maintain the serenity of a saint? If you are able to maintain the dynamism of a billionaire CEO at the same time, the inner serenity of a saint, you are then able to live your purpose. And it's not difficult to reach. It seems impossible to many people because they have never tried it. Bhagavad Gita teaches us that most people simply pursue success. Bhagavad Gita teaches us to grow from success to significance. Success is when you add value to yourself. You learn how to succeed. Significance is when you teach other people to succeed, when you empower the other people to succeed. You are then able to live a life of purpose. As you know, the Bhagavad Gita contains 701 verses divided into 18 chapters. The 18 chapters are divided into 3 sets of 6 chapters. The first 6, the middle 6, and the last 6. Discussing the famous aphorism, Tat Tvam Asi. Tat means that. Tvam means you. Asi means art. Tat Tvam Asi means that which you are seeking outside, you are already, you have it already. What we are pursuing in the external world, you got it already, but we don't focus upon it. We don't realize that we have it. And what are we seeking? Something so elusive called happiness. That's all that you're seeking. You don't want success. You don't want money. You don't want fame. You don't want power. What you want is happiness. We believe money will give happiness. We believe power will give us happiness. We believe fame will give us happiness. And we pursue it. So the entire 18 chapters are discussing the aphorism, Tat Tvam Asi, that which you are seeking outside, you are already. The reason for people being unhappy is because they are looking for a reason to be happy. We don't need a reason to be happy. Since happiness is our original nature, since peace and bliss are our essential nature, we don't need a reason to be happy. The moment you say, I need a reason to be happy, that very moment unhappiness begins. Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. The first 6 chapters talks about you, the individual. If you go through the verses of the first 6 chapters, you'll see that it is talking about your individuality, your personality. It is preparing you to meet the challenges of the world. The second 6 chapters, verses 7 to 12, talks about that supreme reality, That happiness, the fountainhead, the source of happiness, you are. And the last set of 6 chapters, verses 13 to 18, talks about asi, which means the relationship between you and that. The relationship between you and God, the relationship between you and the supreme reality, the relationship between you and happiness. You are already. Tattvamasi. Analyze the essence of our own self. As you know, the Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue, it's a conversation, it is a discussion, a question and answer discussion between Lord Krishna and Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. To give you the backdrop of the Bhagavad Gita, as you may have been familiar already, Arjuna, a great warrior, one of the 5 Pandava brothers. Arjuna was the most noted warriors of his time. He had all the skills and techniques of archery. He spent several years under his guru Dronacharya. He's got all the weapons in his command. The Kaurava brothers inherited the kingdom, the ancestral kingdom. When the Kauravas and the Pandavas together were dividing their kingdom, the division was unfairly done, obviously. The Kauravas kept the prosperous part of the kingdom, and the Pandavas were given the area called Khandava Prastha, which is barren land. Some portion is in forest. Kauravas kept for themselves the capital, Hastinapura. Pandavas accepted gracefully, graciously, and in a matter of time, they developed this kingdom, the barren land, and renamed it as Indraprastha, the realm of heaven. Converted Khandava Prastha into Indraprastha. Pandavas, with their right mental disposition, dynamism, converted Khandava Prastha into Indraprastha. They converted difficulties into opportunities. And they made the Indraprastha far more prosperous, glorious than what the Kauravas had. Obviously, like it happens today, Kauravas were jealous, very jealous of the prosperity and popularity of the Pandavas. That's what happens. You find religious institutions being split, business establishments being split. So this division that happened thousands of years ago, depicted in the Bhagavad Gita, is not something that happened then. It happens right now. You often come across families are split, jealousy is brewed. Business establishment, religious institutions are split. And very often religious institutions are driven by unhealthy competition, jealousy, and hatred. It destroys the very purpose. Kauravas was very jealous of the prosperity and the glory and the fame of the Pandavas. Obviously, they were the righteous. And the Kauravas invited the Pandavas for a game of dice. And Duryodhana, along with his uncle Shakuni, played the game of dice and defeated, of inverted commas, the Pandavas, the eldest of the Pandavas, Yudhishthira. He had a problem. He had a weakness for the game of dice, number one. Number two, he was not a master of it. Since there was a double blow, since there was a double blunder, it wasn't difficult to defeat Yudhishthira, and unfairly too. And the Kauravas usurped the kingdom of the Pandavas. The condition was that whoever wins, the winner will take over the kingdom of the opponent. And the loser has to go into exile for 13 years. 12 years in the forest and 13th year in incognito. Through the unfair game of dice, the Kauravas defeated the Pandavas and they had to go into exile for 13 long years. And they successfully fulfilled the sojourn of 13 years, 12 years in the forest, moved around in the forest and played many roles. And 13th year incognito. And having successfully completed the sojourn, their exile, came back and asked the kingdom from the Kauravas. And obviously, Duryodhana, being the king, enjoyed the prosperity, glory, everything for 13 long years. He doesn't want to return it. That's what happens among politicians. Having enjoyed the power, position, pelf, prestige of being a leader, they get so attached, they get so obsessed with the power, they don't want to let it go. It not only happens in the politics, it happens in the families. If a businessman started business and he grew the business successfully, even at the ripe old age of 70, 80, 90, there are people simply want to cling on to the power. They don't feel like dispensing with the power, attached. Duryodhana refused to return the kingdom. The condition was fulfilled by the Pandavas. And he said, I will not give you place enough to place the tip of the needle, go to hell. Literally. And many wise men intervened. Many men of great wisdom intervened and requested, appealed to Duryodhana to return the kingdom, but he would have none of this. Eventually, Bhagavan Sri Krishna himself intervened, requesting to return the kingdom. Duryodhana was very adamant. Krishna said, give them 5 states. That's enough. Duryodhana refused. Give them 5 districts. He was not ready. Give them 5 villages. That is when Duryodhana said, go to hell. I will not give you space enough to place the tip of the needle. That is when Krishna told Pandavas, come on boys, fight. There was no intention to wage the war. The purpose of the war was to establish dharma. The best war you can ever fight against is to establish righteousness. That's all that Krishna encouraged. So during those 13 years of exile, the Pandavas, they had the gut feeling that the Kauravas will not return the kingdom. So they knew they were preparing themselves for the war, accumulate all the weapons. And in run up to the war, Kauravas managed to secure 11 battalions. There were 11 allies joined the Kauravas. And some of the most famous warriors and army of that time was among the Kauravas. The Pandavas, the noble, the righteous people. Kauravas are the unrighteous Lord. Pandavas are the righteous Lord. The righteous people could only manage to secure 7 battalions. On paper, Kauravas were far larger, stronger in every possible ways compared to the Pandavas, 7 battalion. And among Pandavas, the most noteworthy warrior was only one, that was Arjuna. Krishna will not fight. Among Kauravas, there were several warriors, including Dronacharya, Bhishma, many other powerful warriors. Both the Kauravas and the Pandavas were arrayed in the battlefield, ready to charge at each other. Arjuna with his brothers, everybody ready in the Kurukshetra. Arjuna requested Krishna to drive the chariot between the two armies so that he can assess the opposing army who are all arrayed, ready to fight. Krishna drove the chariot between the two armies. Arjuna stood up on the chariot to assess the opposing army. There, Arjuna was overwhelmed with emotion. All sorts of emotion, fear, insecurity, misplaced compassion. When he was overwhelmed with this emotion, he laid out his weapon and appealed to Krishna that I can't wage this war. I can't fight this war. He laid out the weapon and appealed, we need to withdraw. In that situation, to a powerful warrior, Arjuna, Lord Krishna gave out the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. When Arjuna did not want to fight, it is Krishna who encouraged you got to fight. It is Arjuna who did not understand the intention and motive. One of the significant message of the Bhagavad Gita is that it solves the problem between action and intention. What determines an action is not what we do, it is the intention, the motive behind the action. An action by itself is not right or wrong, good or bad. It is the motive, the intention that determines an action to be right or wrong, good or bad. This Arjuna did not understand, as many people today don't understand. Remember, Arjuna, sage Vyasa, the compiler of the Mahabharata, in which the Bhagavad Gita is enshrined, painted a beautiful pen picture of an individual that is today. In fact, the character of Arjuna is timeless. It was applicable then, it is applicable now. If you analyze the personality of Arjuna, it is very much incongruent with what a young man today. Arjuna went through many years of education and training in the art of archery. He's got all the skills and abilities to wage the war. But when he came to the 0 hour, most critical situation, he was not able to use those knowledge, skill, the ability that he acquired. That's exactly what happens today. You see a young man in the age of 20, 25, 30, or 40. If you look at his, her academic background, brilliant. Undergraduation from some of the reputed universities in the world, and then post-graduation or an MBA from some of the top universities in the world. Having had all those abilities and skill, when they come to meet the challenges of the world, they are not able to utilize their skill. Many of them want to run away from the battle. They're under stress and strain, worries and anxiety. They are mentally under pressure. When you are under the influence of mental pressure, worries and anxieties, your talent, ability remains dormant. No matter how much skill you have, you could be a gold medalist from a university in terms of your academic performance, but that means nothing when you don't have the right mental disposition. So in the life of Arjuna, you see an individual with all the brilliance, ability, skill, but he did not know how to manage his own mind. That is where the message of the Bhagavad Gita comes in. How to manage your thought, how to manage your emotion, how to manage your mindset. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to remember, there is one space that is far more precious, far more powerful, far more important than the most expensive space in the world. You can own a plush office space in one of the most upmarket building in Manhattan. This space that I'm talking about is more valuable than that. You can have one of the most expensive location in London, a house there. This space is more expensive than that. You can name it, no matter which part of the world. This space to you is more valuable than that. And that space is your mental space. The space between your ears, not literally, but what I mean is figuratively, your mental space. In that space, who is operating, who is leading? That mental space is represented by Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra means the field of action. Kuru means action, Kshetra means field. In that mental space, who is ruling? Is the Kauravas ruling or the Pandavas? Kauravas represents ignoble tendencies, negative propensities. The Pandavas represents noble tendencies or the higher aspirations. Pandavas are the higher aspirations, the Kauravas are the lower temptations. In that mental space called Kurukshetra, there is a constant war between the higher aspirations and lower temptations. The first battle you can ever win in life is that war in your mental space. And how to win that war is exactly the message of the Bhagavad Gita. How do you win it? So in this 7 days that we're together, we will be studying the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, called Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. Bhakti or devotion is one of the most misunderstood concept in the Bhagavad Gita, or in life rather, on the religious path. A lot of people misunderstand the concept of bhakti. What is bhakti? Does bhakti means attachment to a personal God, exclusive of all other gods in Hinduism? Hinduism, as you know, there are many, many gods. What is bhakti? Is that a personal or fanatic attachment to a god? Is worship of God, is worshipping an idol, a symbol? What is bhakti? Or is it a blind allegiance to personality or a guru, a god man, as they call it? What is bhakti? Does bhakti, devotion to God, mean a personal attachment to a god man? Does bhakti, devotion to God, require you to go to a temple, a place of worship? What is it? Does devotion to God means singing prayers, bhajans and kirtans, devotional songs, choir? What does bhakti mean? Does bhakti mean begging for favors from an unknown dictator called God? Unfortunately, one of the things that religion created is the phantom called God. And they're made to fanatically attach to that unknown phantom called God. And what do? They go to religious place and beg from God for favors. There are two types of beggars in this world. The rich people beg inside the temple, begging for favors, especially if you go to India. The poor people beg outside the temple. Both are beggars. Devotion to God does not mean influence. It doesn't mean to influence God's decision in your favor. That's not bhakti. That's not devotion to God. Devotion to God does not mean praying to God to win favors. And what is bhakti? We have 20 verses, 6 days to analyze. Another set of people again misunderstand. Does devotion to God means erecting temples in the name of a particular god, Krishna or Vishnu or Rama or Hanuman or Ganesha or Lakshmi, Saraswati, or any other mothers? Does bhakti means performance of rituals? If you can't perform a havan, or if you can't afford to perform a havan, you don't have the money or resources, can you not be a devotee of God? That is what we are going to analyze. If you don't, you may not have the opportunity. You may not have the resources, or you may not want to do it. Does that stop you from being a devotee of God? If I don't worship Krishna, will Krishna not accept me as a devotee of God? Or if I worship Hanuman, or if I worship Jesus Christ, or any other god, Shiva, or Vishnu, or Lakshmi, will Krishna not accept me as his devotee? Let's analyze. Many people don't seem to understand the very purpose of prayer. They misunderstand, as I mentioned, prayer as influencing God's decision in your favor. That's not prayer. Prayer is not to please God, to win favors. Yes, you can call it prayer, but that is the wrong prayer. There are two prayers, P-R-A-Y, the other one is P-R-E-Y. The true prayer is P-R-A-Y. Everything else is P-R-E-Y. We are praying to God for various demands to be fulfilled. What is true prayer? Another misconception is that many people believe the Bhagavad Gita is a religious text meant for Hindus. It is not a religious text meant for Hindus. It is a manual for humanity. Decades ago, when Mahatma Gandhi was in England, he went to British Library in London and asked the question, which is the most borrowed book in the library? The librarian looked his record and he brought a book, not knowing what the book content was, and that was the Bhagavad Gita. That time it wasn't so easily available other parts of the world. Now it is available every part of the world. But no matter how many people take advantage of it, it is not book. It is not a religious book to sit and worship. It is a book that is necessary for every living being, every human being in this world. No matter how old, how young you are, if you are young, you need to learn Bhagavad Gita to learn to live. If you are already old, you need the Bhagavad Gita to learn how to retire, how to program your life for next life, because life doesn't end when you die. Life is a continuous process. If you're ignorant, you need Bhagavad Gita to learn wisdom. If you are a learned person, you need Bhagavad Gita for humility. If you are wealthy and rich and haughty, you need Bhagavad Gita to develop some compassion. If you're a person with big dreams and aspirations, you need Bhagavad Gita as to how to convert the dreams into aspiration. A lot of people dream. Abdul Kalam, the Nobel president, one of the former president of India, said, dream is not what you see when you're sleeping. Dream is what does not let you sleep. Doesn't mean sleepless night. What I mean, what it means is that it is something that is in your bosom, you're filled with your mind. You morning, noon, and night, you think about it and how to convert the dream into an action. If you're a weak person emotionally, that a lot of people don't have the emotional strength. They easily succumb to emotional problem. You need Bhagavad Gita for strength, emotional strength. If you're already a strong person, you need Bhagavad Gita to get a clear direction in life. If you're rich, you need direction. If you're poor, you need Bhagavad Gita to get a sense of comfort. If you are a troubled person, you need Bhagavad Gita for peace of mind. If you are exhausted, if you're tired, you need Bhagavad Gita to experience rest. If you are a person who has got a lot of dilemma, a lot of doubt and confusion, you need Bhagavad Gita for reassurance. If you're a human being, and you need Bhagavad Gita for guidance. None of us, from the newborn to the oldest, are excluded in studying the Bhagavad Gita. For a newborn, the child may not be able to understand the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, but the very chanting, that the chanting reverberates in the minds of the child. It makes an impact. That is the essence of Bhagavad Gita, not to look at Bhagavad Gita as a religious book. It is a manual for life and living. The 12th chapter, entitled Bhakti Yoga, contains 20 verses, one of the shorter chapters. And each verse is a masterpiece, oozing with practical wisdom that we'll try and unpack every single day for next 6 days. Now, this particular chapter, again, solves a dilemma. That is, what is true worship? Is form worship better or formless worship better? There are two types of bhakti or devotion people tend to express. One is saguna upasana and the other one is nirguna upasana. Which of the two worship of God is better? Saguna, the form worship, the idol worship. The other one is formless worship, worship of God without form. Which is better? So these 20 verses can be divided into 3 topics here. The first topic is form and formless worship, verses 1 to 5. And verses 6 to 12 discusses progressive ways to reach God. And verses 13 to 20 discusses one of the most fascinating sections in the Bhagavad Gita as to discussing what is true devotion to God. It is totally different from what many people, so-called religious people, whether you're a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim, misunderstand. And if so-called religious people to be able to understand even a fraction of these 35 qualities, it won't happen what's happening in the world today. Whether what's happening in Afghanistan or America or India or which of Africa for that matter, whichever part of the world. Many people misunderstand and say religion is the cause of conflict. Religion is not the cause of conflict. It is misunderstanding of religion. Nobody bothered to, explore the essence. People of the world are suffering from intellectual lethargy. They are so lazy intellectually, they don't want to think and understand the deeper essence. So these 8 verses, verses 13 to 20, Bhagavan Shri Krishna discusses 35 virtues of a devotee of God, 35 qualities of a bhakta. And when you read these 35 qualities, Krishna doesn't ask whether you are a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Jewish or a Zoroastrian or a Buddhist. He doesn't ask whether you go to temple or a church or mosque. He doesn't ask whether how many times you go to temple. He doesn't ask how many times you worship Lakshmi, Saraswati, or Krishna. He doesn't ask how many times you perform havans. He doesn't ask how many times you chant the mantras. He doesn't ask how many times you read the Bhagavad Gita or you read it or not read it at all. He describes 35 qualities of a bhakta, a devotee of God. One of the most important, it clarifies the misconceptions. We will together read the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita.
Arjuna uvacha evam sadata yuktaye bhakta swam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam Tesham ke yoga vittamaha.
The first verse is a question by Arjuna to Bhagavan Sri Krishna, as I told you, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna said, Arjuna asked to Krishna. It's a dialogue, it's a conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna asks many practical questions. In response to those questions, Krishna answers. What did Arjuna ask? What did Arjuna say? Evam satata yukta e. Those devotees who ever steadfast, thus worship you, and those again who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest, which of these are better versed in yoga? Yoga here means the bhakti yoga. Remember, every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is entitled or concluded with the yoga, like bhakti yoga or karma yoga or sankhya yoga or jnana karma sannyasa yoga or devasura sampat vibhaga yoga. Every chapter is concluding by the word yoga. So here, yoga doesn't mean the yoga asana, the stretching exercises that we do in the studio. That is, of course, fantastic. But here, yoga means union with God. So which of these two paths, the form worship or the formless worship, which of these two paths is better, worse for me, O Krishna? That is Arjuna's question. Those devotees, meaning those among us who ever steadfast, satatam yukta, meaning find constant union with God, consistently, with a spirit of determination, worship you referring to the form of Krishna, the idol. And those again who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest. Aksharam, meaning that which is imperishable. And avyaktam, unmanifest, referring to the formless. As I told you earlier, there are two types of worshippers. Those who are on the spiritual path. There are one set of people who need a form. To them, their mind cannot feel if their eyes don't see. Those people whose mind is not inspired when their eyes don't see a form of God, if they don't see the form of Krishna, if they don't see the form of Shiva, their mind doesn't feel inspired, nor can their intellect conceive the formless reality. To them, and those people who are on the path, they don't need a form. Even if they don't go to the temple, they are not any less on the spiritual path. Their mind is still inspired by the higher values of life. Their mind is still inspired by the supreme reality. So which of this is better, O Krishna? Those who worship saguna upasana, the form worship. Those who worship the gross perceptible form. In Hinduism, as you know, there are so many gods and goddesses. And Hinduism gives you that freedom. It is the most Catholic of even the Catholics, where it gives you liberty to choose the symbol, the idol that you want to choose. Saguna upasana. Upasana means worship. Saguna means attribute, characteristics, form. Worship of God with a form. And then he says nirguna upasana, formless worship, which is subtle, imperceptible, something that is abstract, inconceivable. There are three types of devotees in the world, three types of spiritual seekers. They are, number one, the idol worshippers, IDOL. They need a symbol of Krishna. There's a need for them to visit the places of worship like temple. They need to go for pilgrimages. Perfect. Their mind is not inspired when their eyes don't see. Idol worshippers. But the problem is, idol, they get attached to the idol. They develop a fanatic obsession to the form of God, the so-called symbol, idol worshippers. Then you have the idol worshippers, IDLE. They are the lazy bunch. They think that, okay, I go to the temple and offer some flower to the idol, the altar, and everything will come right. They don't follow it up with the action and thinking. They invite a priest to their house, pay the Guru Dakshina, the fee, to the priest, and ask the priest to perform the ritual. They outsource spirituality. Idol worshippers, IDLE. Then there is a third type, the rare type. They are the ideal worshippers. Whether they use an idol or not, they are able to see the ideal beyond the idol. Remember, the idol is not the ideal. The idol is something that represents the ideal. They use the symbol to conceive the formless. Without the symbol, the idols, life becomes almost impractical. You need symbols and indications. National flag is a symbol representing your to incite the patriotism. National anthem are the anthem that kindle your patriotism or loyalty to the country. It's a symbol. There are every aspect of our life we use symbol in physics, in chemistry, in mathematics. You ask a student studying metrics. It's all symbols representing a deep principle. So ancient sages and saints ingeniously used the science of symbology to inspire the spiritual seekers to conceive the formless, nameless, attributeless reality through a form. And when they encouraged the form worship, they also insisted that the form is not God, that is simply an idol that is representing the ideal. Just as when you see the photograph of your grandfather, photograph is simply a framed piece of cardboard with a picture inside. But that frame of your grandfather's picture represents your love, your reverence, your devotion to your grandfather. Your devotion to grandfather, without your reverence to grandfather, the form, the picture is useless. So when you look at the picture, it incites a sense of sentiment and devotion. Similarly, Hinduism ingeniously used the science of symbology to inspire spiritual seekers, inspire their thinking, encourage their reflection to conceive the supreme reality, the ideal worshippers. So there are idol worshippers, the idol worshippers, and then there is ideal worshippers. So does a person who choose a form, is he an ideal worshipper or is an idol worshipper or idol worshipper? Who is he? That is Arjuna's question. To those devotees who ever steadfast, thus worship you, the form, Mr. Krishna, who's standing in front of Arjuna. And again, those who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest, which of these are better versed in yoga? Yoga, the word yoga is derived from the Sanskrit root word yuj, which means to join, to unite. The English equivalent of the word yoga is religion. The word religion is derived from its two Latin terms. They are re and ligare. The word re prefixed to any word means again. Reunite or remarry or re-serve, whatever it is. Re means again. Ligare in Latin means to unite, to join. So re plus ligare is religion. So religion is that process that helps you to unite with God or to unite with your own self. What is yoga in Sanskrit is religion in English. Both has got the same similar meaning. To join, to unite. So which of these are better versed in yoga, O Arjuna? Idle are used to forge your thought in a specific direction, just as when you want to cast a slab, concrete slab, you use various prompts and scaffold. First, you fix the scaffold, and then you run the steel bars, and then you pour the mixed concrete mix, and wait for few weeks for it to dry. Once the slab, the concrete is fully dry and strong, you can remove the scaffold. Similarly, in Hinduism, they use form to allow you to forge your thought in the direction of higher values, in the direction of God. Once your thoughts are firmly forged in the direction of God, even without the form, you can conceive God. Just as once the concrete is fully dry and formed, you can remove the scaffold. Until then, you need scaffolding. Similarly, until our thoughts are forged in the direction of higher values, in the direction of the Supreme, you need the form. Just as the children, when their legs are still weak, you use the walker. Once their legs become strong and they can walk without any support, the walker is not only non-essential, it becomes an impediment. Similarly, once you are able to conceive the imperishable, unmanifest supreme reality, the form becomes redundant. Until then, we rather use the form, the symbol, the idols, the temple, the pilgrimage, the rituals in heaven. So these rituals and prayers and symbols have got a purpose. There are one set of people on the spiritual path, things that, oh, I don't need the temple. I don't need to go to the temple. I worship at home. Or I don't need to worship the form. No. Depends upon your makeup. So let us understand what is Bhagavan Shri Krishna's response to this profound question by Arjuna. That is, which of these two devotees who are worshippers of form and those formless worship, who are better versed on the spiritual path? We'll conclude the answers to that question tomorrow at 7 o'clock sharp. We'll conclude with a Shanti Path. Oh. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angajanji, for such a power-packed start to this divine Gita week. Dear devotees, if there is one of many practical lessons that we can take away from tonight's divine discourse, it is the importance of determining our swadharma, our passion or purpose in life, and then pursuing that purpose persistently and joyfully so that we can achieve our goal. In so doing, though, we should aim to grow from success to significance, and then only can we achieve dynamism, success, and peace. Devotees, if you wish to delve further into this profound knowledge, which has been so beautifully synthesized into pivotal topics by Sri Angajanji, please do visit our website, www.lifemastery.vision, for different CDs, books, and DVDs. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to having you on this enlightening journey over the next 7 days to understand bhakti and the yoga of devotion. Take care and have a blessed evening. Hari Om.